A dense fog lay over the California hills, blanketing the landscape in a thick shroud of mystery and silence. The sun struggled to pierce through the gray, casting an eerie light over the grounds of a grand estate that stood lonely against the encroaching gloom. This was the Whitmore Mansion, a once cherished hallmark of opulence, now shrouded in secrets and whispers. Its towering spires reached towards the sky, but the beauty that once captivated visitors had faded into a melancholic silhouette. Vines crawled up the crumbling stone facade, reclaiming the structure as nature began to weave its tapestry over the remnants of human ambition. As the camera panned closer, the intricate woodwork of the entrance door, still a testament to craftsmanship, revealed itself through layers of peeling paint. The heavy door creaked open, a ghostly echo reverberating in the still air, as if the mansion itself exhaled a long-held breath. Inside, the grand foyer lay cloaked in shadows, where the faded remnants of a once splendid chandelier hung like forgotten stars in a night sky. Dust motes danced in the weak light, swirling in lazy spirals that seemed to whisper the stories of those who once called this place home. Among the echoes of laughter and music that lingered in the air, a deeper silence seemed to seep from the walls, heavy with the weight of untold tales. This mansion, with its once vibrant colors now dulled by time, held the memories of extravagant balls and intimate family gatherings. Yet, beneath the surface of its beauty lay a sense of foreboding, an unseen tension that clung to the air like the fog outside. Shadows crept along the walls, twisting and shifting, as if harboring the spirits of those who had not quite left. The Whitmore Mansion, built in the late 1800s, was a symbol of wealth and status in an era defined by the pursuit of the American dream. It was designed by renowned architect Charles McGowan, who poured his soul into its construction, drawing inspiration from the grand estates of Europe. Ornate details adorned every corner, with intricate wood paneling and lavish marble fireplaces that spoke to the grandeur of its past. Yet, despite its majestic exterior, whispers of tragedy and misfortune clung to the mansion like cobwebs in the corners. As the camera swept through the empty halls, it paused on a family portrait that hung askew on the wall. The faces, once full of life and vibrancy, appeared faded and ghostly, their smiles frozen in time. The Whitmore family, known for their philanthropy and charm, had once been the envy of high society. Now, however, they were merely a footnote in the annals of history, their legacy overshadowed by scandal and despair. A cold gust of wind swept through the cracked windows, sending a shiver down the spine of anyone who dared to enter. It carried with it the faintest echo of laughter, a reminder of the joys that had once filled the mansion. Yet that laughter had long since faded, replaced by the silence of abandonment. Stories of the mansion's decline had spread through the surrounding towns, drawing in the curious and the brave, eager to uncover the truth behind its haunting beauty. But as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting elongated shadows that reached across the floor like fingers grasping for something lost, a sense of unease began to settle in. What had happened to the Whitmore family? Why had they fled their once beloved home? The answers lay buried within the walls, waiting to be uncovered by those intrepid enough to seek them. With each creak of the floorboards, the mansion seemed to breathe, exhaling its secrets into the air. What had started as a haven of wealth had become a prison of despair. The tales of the mansion's haunting nature grew with each passing year. Tales of footsteps echoing in empty rooms and flickering lights that danced in the corners of the eye. It was as if the house itself had become a sentient being, holding on to the memories of its former inhabitants, unwilling to let them go. The atmosphere thickened, wrapping around the viewer like an embrace of dread. Every corner of the mansion whispered of broken dreams and unfulfilled promises, drawing those who ventured inside into its web of intrigue. The air felt charged with anticipation, as if the very walls were waiting for someone to unravel the mystery that enveloped them. As the camera lingered on the grand staircase, a sense of foreboding loomed. The staircase, once a grand entrance to lavish parties and elegant gatherings, now stood as a monument to the passage of time, a reminder of the lives that had unfolded within these walls. Each step creaked under the weight of history, resonating with the secrets that lay just out of reach. And then, as if in response to the growing tension, a sudden noise echoed through the mansion. A soft thud. The sound reverberated in the silence, sending a chill down the spine. The mystery deepened, and the viewer's heart raced in anticipation. What lay hidden within the shadows of the Whitmore mansion? What stories were waiting to be told? And who, or what, had not yet made their presence known? As the camera faded to black, a single question hung in the air like a ghostly whisper. Would the truth ever be revealed, or would the Whitmore mansion remain an enigma forever shrouded in darkness? The journey was just beginning, and the echoes of the past were about to come alive in ways that no one could have anticipated. The Whitmore mansion, a sprawling testament to the ambitions of its time, was constructed in the year 1895. It rose proudly from the earth as a beacon of affluence in a burgeoning California, a state teetering on the edge of prosperity. The world was experiencing rapid changes, with the gold rush igniting dreams and aspirations across the nation. It was during this period of growth that Charles McGowan, a celebrated architect known for his masterful designs, was commissioned to bring the Whitmore family's vision to life. The Whitmores, a family of industrialists with keen business acumen and a desire for recognition, poured their fortunes into the mansion. They sought not only a home, but a statement, a physical embodiment of their success and social standing. McGowan's design was inspired by the grand estates of Europe, infusing elements of Gothic Revival architecture with a touch of California's natural beauty. Tall, spindly spires surged upward, while ornate stone carvings and intricate woodwork adorned every corner of the structure. The mansion was a marvel, featuring expansive ballrooms, lavish living quarters, and an impressive library, the center of the household where the family gathered to discuss affairs and entertain guests. Inside, the atmosphere was one of grandeur. Plush carpets muffled the sound of footsteps, and walls were adorned with rich tapestries that told stories of a world long past. The library, with its towering shelves filled with leather-bound books, exuded an air of wisdom and sophistication. Here, the Whitmore family would host influential figures of their time, politicians, artists, and thinkers who mingled beneath a ceiling painted with celestial motifs, each star glimmering as if it held a secret of its own. However, as extravagant as the mansion was, it was also a reflection of the tumultuous times. The late 19th century in America was rife with change, from the struggles of labor movements to the burgeoning suffrage movement. The Whitmore family, while basking in their own wealth, were not untouched by the ripples of societal upheaval. Behind the facade of elegance, tensions simmered within the household. The pressures of maintaining their status weighed heavily, leading to conflicts that often erupted in private. In the early years, the mansion was a hub of activity, filled with laughter and the sounds of music echoing through its halls. The Whitmores hosted grand balls where guests danced under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their laughter mingling with the strains of a live orchestra. Yet, as the years rolled on, the charm of the Whitmore mansion began to mask a growing unease. Secrets whispered through the corridors, cloaked in shadows. The family's once celebrated legacy began to fracture under the weight of their ambitions and personal tragedies. Whispers of scandal began to circulate, casting a shadow over their once illustrious name. The eldest son, William, known for his charm and intelligence, struggled with the burdens of expectation. The pressure to uphold the family's reputation weighed down on him, leading him into reckless behaviors that soon became the talk of society. Late-night escapades and whispers of inappropriate relationships tarnished the family's pristine image, creating rifts that only deepened as the years progressed. As time wore on, the once vibrant gatherings at the Whitmore mansion dwindled, replaced by a sense of isolation. The laughter that once echoed through the halls became a distant memory, replaced by an oppressive silence that seemed to linger like a thick fog. The weight of secrets grew heavier, and the mansion itself began to reflect the internal turmoil of its inhabitants. Dust settled on the grand piano where music once flowed freely, while the gilded mirrors reflected faded images of a family once united. In the midst of this decline, the mansion's architecture, once a marvel, began to show signs of decay. Cracks formed in the marble staircases, and the once bright colors of the walls faded into muted tones. The gardens that had been lovingly tended fell into disarray, with weeds reclaiming the land, and vines creeping up the sides of the mansion as if nature itself sought to erase the signs of human ambition. But it was not just physical decay that plagued the Whitmore mansion. It became apparent that the house held more than mere memories. It began to take on an aura of foreboding. Strange occurrences were whispered about in the town, doors creaking open on their own, shadows flitting past windows when no one was home, and unexplained cold spots that chilled the air, even in the height of summer. Locals began to share tales of the Whitmore family, spinning narratives of curses and misfortune that had befallen them. The mansion, it seemed, was more than just a home. It had become a vessel for secrets that refused to remain buried. Yet, when the whispers of tragedy reached their crescendo, few could have predicted the calamity that awaited them. A fateful storm swept through California, bringing with it torrential rain and howling winds that battered the mansion's facade. The once proud estate, with its towering spires and intricate designs, bore the full brunt of nature's fury. The very foundation that had supported the Whitmores through generations began to tremble, mirroring the instability of the family within. As the storm raged on, a sense of dread settled over the household. It was a night etched in the memories of the townsfolk, a night when the mansion would be forever changed. Beneath the cacophony of the storm, a terrible tragedy unfolded within its walls, one that would seal the fate of the Whitmore family and the mansion they had called home. While the rain poured down, a chilling scream pierced the night, echoing through the darkness, leaving the townspeople to wonder what horrors lay within. The threads of fate were drawing tight around the Whitmore family, and the mansion, instead of serving as a sanctuary, had transformed into a harbinger of their downfall. What had begun as a dream of wealth and grandeur was unraveling into a haunting reality, and the whispers of the mansion grew louder, beckoning those who dared to listen. The Whitmore mansion was not just a home. It was a living tapestry woven with the dreams and ambitions of the Whitmore family. At the heart of this grand estate was Robert Whitmore, a man of vision and determination who had climbed the social ladder from humble beginnings to become one of the wealthiest industrialists of his time. His rise was fueled by the discovery of rich gold deposits in the nearby hills, leading him to amass a fortune that would enable the creation of this magnificent residence. With his wife, Eleanor, by his side, Robert envisioned a space that would reflect their affluence and societal status. Eleanor Whitmore was known for her grace and charm, a perfect counterpart to Robert's ambitious spirit. Together, they entertained prominent figures from across California and beyond, transforming the mansion into a hub of lavish gatherings. Every corner of the estate seemed to resonate with their laughter, the faint strains of music from grand balls echoing through the gilded halls. The walls, adorned with fine art and intricate molding, bore witness to the vibrant life that once thrived within. Guests marveled at the opulence, from the imported marble floors to the lush velvet drapes that swayed gently with the evening breeze. But beyond the glamour, the Whitmore family held secrets that simmered beneath the surface. Their lives were not without turbulence. The pressures of wealth and public expectation took a toll on their relationships. Robert, consumed by his business ventures, often found himself absent from home, leaving Eleanor to manage the household and entertain guests alone. As time passed, whispers of discontent began to circulate within the opulent walls of the mansion, as tensions rose between the couple. Eleanor, once the heart of the estate, grew increasingly isolated. The laughter that had once echoed through the halls faded, leaving behind an unsettling silence. Their children, Charles and Alice, were caught in the crossfire of their parents' discord. Charles, the ambitious heir, yearned for his father's approval, but felt overshadowed by Robert's towering expectations. Meanwhile, Alice, the artistic spirit of the family, sought solace in her paintings, often retreating to the sun-drenched conservatory where she found refuge among the flowers. The mansion, with its sprawling rooms and hidden corners, became both a sanctuary and a prison for them, each space echoing their hopes and fears. As the 20th century dawned, the Whitmore family faced new challenges on the horizon. The economy began to shift, and the once thriving gold industry faced decline. Robert's ambitious pursuits turned into a desperate scramble to preserve their wealth and status. This phase of uncertainty strained family bonds even further, leading to heated arguments and cold silences that filled the once vibrant halls with an air of despair. The mansion, once a symbol of prosperity, began to reflect the fractures within the family. Rumors of scandal began to swirl around the Whitmores, drawing unwanted attention to their family name. Accusations of financial mismanagement and personal betrayals surfaced, and the community that once revered them began to turn. Friends were lost and the lavish parties ceased, replaced by somber evenings filled with unspoken words and lingering glances. The atmosphere thickened with tension as the weight of societal expectations hung heavily over them. In this atmosphere of unease, the mansion bore witness to an event that would change everything. On a stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows, a tragic accident occurred that sent shockwaves through the family. Charles, in a fit of anger after a particularly heated argument with Robert, stormed out into the night, vowing to prove himself independent of his father's influence. The winds howled outside, mirroring the turmoil within, as Eleanor, desperate to calm the tempest brewing in the hearts of her loved ones, remained inside, oblivious to the storm that was about to unfold. Hours passed, and the storm raged on, yet Charles did not return. Panic set in as the family began to search for him, calling his name into the night. The frantic search ended tragically at the edge of their property, where they discovered that Charles had lost his footing on the slick, rain-soaked path leading to the cliffs. The news of his death spread like wildfire, leaving the Whitmore family shattered, their dreams now entangled with grief and despair. In the wake of this tragedy, the mansion transformed from a symbol of wealth and prestige into a haunting reminder of loss. Eleanor fell into a deep depression, her vibrant spirit extinguished by the weight of her son's death. Robert, once a commanding figure, spiraled into despair, unable to cope with the guilt that consumed him. Their marriage, already strained, crumbled beneath the weight of grief, and soon whispers of scandal and betrayal were overshadowed by the tragedy that had befallen them. As if the mansion itself mourned for the lost dreams, a sense of foreboding settled over the estate. Unexplained sounds echoed through the halls. The creaking of floorboards and the chilling gusts of wind seemed to carry the whispers of the past. The once joyous space became a dwelling of shadows, where every corner felt heavy with sorrow. Guests who dared to visit noted the eerie atmosphere that surrounded them, sharing tales of fleeting glimpses of figures in the distance and soft cries echoing through the rooms. From that point on, the Whitmore mansion stood as a symbol of tragedy, its walls holding the weight of the family's secrets. The once bustling home, filled with laughter and joy, became a ghost of its former self, a haunting reminder of dreams lost and lives forever changed. The legacy of the Whitmore family faded into obscurity, yet the stories of their lives lingered in the air, waiting to be uncovered. As the camera pulls back, revealing the mansion's silhouette against the moonlit sky, a lingering question remains: what truly happened inside those walls? The echoes of the past seem to beckon, urging us to seek the truth hidden within the shadows. The Whitmore mansion, though abandoned, stands as a powerful testament to the fragility of wealth and the haunting weight of ambition, forever wrapped in mystery and sorrow. If you find yourself captivated by the haunting tales of the Whitmore mansion, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to know where you're listening from, as it's essential for us to see how far our stories reach. Stay with us as we unfold more layers of this intriguing narrative, inviting you deeper into the shadows of history. The Whitmore mansion, with its towering spires and ornate facade, once served as a beacon of wealth and ambition, but the tide of fortune can be fickle. It was within these grand walls that the seeds of tragedy were sown, leading to a dramatic unraveling of the family's legacy. The year was 1923, and what seemed to be a flourishing existence was about to take a perilous turn. It began with whispers, soft, insistent murmurs that floated through the opulent halls, barely breaking the heavy silence that usually enveloped the mansion. Shadows danced against the walls as night fell, and the once vibrant laughter that filled the air was replaced by an oppressive stillness. At the heart of the Whitmore family was Henry Whitmore, the patriarch who had built his empire through tireless work and shrewd business dealings. However, beneath the polished exterior of this industrial giant lay a man increasingly plagued by insecurities and growing paranoia. Rumors began to circulate about financial troubles, and whispers of mismanaged investments crept through the corridors like an unwelcome guest. The once admired family was becoming the subject of scrutiny, their lavish lifestyle a glaring contrast to the struggles of the working class outside their gates. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows, the atmosphere within the mansion grew heavier. It was during one of those fateful evenings that a grand soiree was scheduled, intended to showcase the Whitmore wealth and charm. Guests arrived in lavish gowns and tailored suits, their laughter and chatter filling the expensive ballroom. But as the night progressed, the glimmer of joy began to fade when a prominent banker, a close associate of Henry's, discreetly pulled him aside. A conversation took place, hushed and tense, with the weight of the world resting on Henry's shoulders. The news was grim. The empire he had built was on shaky ground, and the banker's disappointment was palpable. The ball that had begun with such promise would mark the beginning of an unraveling that would shake the foundations of the mansion itself. That very night, as guests twirled and danced, lost in the glittering chandeliers overhead, a storm was brewing both outside and within the hearts of the Whitmore family. Tensions escalated as Henry returned to face his family. The airy facade of happiness that enveloped the mansion was beginning to crack. It was clear that beneath the surface of this extravagant gathering, a storm was brewing. Dinner was served, and the clinking of silverware danced alongside the uneasy silence that had settled over the table. Each member of the family sat lost in their thoughts, masking their worries with forced smiles. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, secrets, and the heavy burden of expectations. Henry's wife, Margaret, once the epitome of grace and poise, now appeared weary, her eyes reflecting a mixture of dread and determination. She had always been the family's anchor, but even her unwavering spirit began to waver. On this night, she sensed the unease creeping into her husband's demeanor, a shift that sent tremors coursing through the household. The couple's 3 children, each navigating their own path in the world of privilege, could feel the heavy cloud hanging over them. They were aware of the whispers, the growing tensions, and the fears that threatened to consume their family. As days transformed into weeks, the cracks widened.
Scandals broke in the local newspapers, and the once revered Whitmore name became synonymous with failure and misfortune.
The once bustling halls became a place of hushed conversations and averted gazes. The family's reputation was crumbling, and with it, their security. The mansion, once a symbol of hope and prosperity, began to echo with the weight of disappointment. The breaking point arrived on a stormy night, one that would transform the Whitmore legacy into the stuff of whispered legend. Henry, consumed by despair, took to the library, his once beloved sanctuary now a prison of his own making. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as if nature itself conspired to mirror his internal turmoil. In the flickering candlelight, he penned a letter to his family, a final testament to his fears and regrets. But the words that flowed from his pen would never see the light of day. In a tragic twist of fate, Margaret, sensing something was amiss, ventured into the library to find her husband. The sight that awaited her was nothing short of devastating. Henry, in a moment of despair, had taken his own life, believing it was the only way to spare his family from further disgrace. The following days were marked by an unbearable weight of grief and confusion. Margaret was left grappling with the incomprehensible loss, while their children struggled to navigate a world that had been irrevocably altered. The mansion, once alive with laughter and warmth, now felt like a tomb, the very walls absorbing the echoes of sorrow. As the weeks turned into months, the family's decline continued. The remaining members, engulfed in their grief, found solace in isolation. The grand soirees ceased, replaced by a haunting silence. The mansion began to fall into disrepair, as if mirroring the disintegration of the Whitmore family legacy. Cracks appeared in the once imposing walls, and dust settled thickly over the once polished surfaces. Rumors began to circulate about the mansion itself. Some claimed it was cursed, a vessel of the pain and despair that had unfolded within its walls. Others spoke of strange occurrences, the sound of footsteps echoing in empty rooms, whispers carried on the wind, and shadows flitting just beyond the corner of one's eye. The mansion, once a proud symbol of wealth and power, had become a haunted relic of a bygone era, steeped in tragedy and loss. As the years wore on, the Whitmore name faded from memory, eclipsed by the legends that surrounded their former home. The mansion stood empty, a ghost of what it once was, leaving behind a story shrouded in mystery and sorrow. The Whitmore legacy had come crashing down, leaving only echoes of its grandeur and a haunting reminder of how quickly fortune can turn. Those who dared to approach the mansion spoke in hushed tones, wary of the shadows that lingered and the secrets that were buried deep within its walls. The tragedy of the Whitmore family had become woven into the very fabric of the mansion, a dark tale that would reverberate through the years to come, just as the wind whispered through the crumbling corridors. The mansion's once gleaming facade had become a canvas for nature's reclamation. Vines crept along the walls, and the elaborate gardens lay in disarray, where vibrant blooms had once flourished. Shadows stretched across the grounds, whispering tales of neglect and decay. It was here, amidst the remnants of grandeur, that eerie accounts began to surface, drawing the curious and the brave to explore the crumbling halls of the Whitmore mansion. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the estate, an unsettling chill settled in the air. The locals spoke of unusual happenings, footsteps echoing in empty rooms, the faint melody of a piano drifting through the corridors at dusk, and cold spots that left visitors shivering. They claimed the spirits of Robert and Eleanor Whitmore, along with their children, lingered within the walls they had once called home, trapped in a web of unresolved emotions and lingering regrets. Those who ventured inside often reported the feeling of being watched. The hushed whispers of past conversations seemed to linger, resonating in the silence. It was as if the mansion itself was a sentient being, holding tightly to the secrets of its inhabitants.
Investigators from various paranormal societies began to flock to the site, armed with cameras and recording devices, eager to capture evidence of the supernatural. One such investigation took place on a stormy night, the wind howling like a lost soul. A team of ghost hunters set up their equipment in the grand ballroom, where countless dances had once filled the space with joy and laughter. Now, the long table lay covered in layers of dust, and tattered drapes hung limply, devoid of the vibrancy they once exuded. The mood was tense as the group began their session.
A medium among them attempted to connect with the spirits, her voice barely rising above the crackling of thunder outside. "Is anyone here with us tonight?" she called out, her words hanging thick in the stagnant air. The team held their breath, hearts racing in anticipation. Suddenly, a distant piano note rang out, clear and resonant, echoing through the hall. The group exchanged startled glances, disbelief etched on their faces. The medium closed her eyes, heart racing as she felt a sudden shift in energy. "They are here," she whispered, "but they are not at peace." As the investigation continued, orbs of light appeared on their cameras, and voices were captured on their recordings, faint, sorrowful cries that seemed to plead for acknowledgement. The energy in the room thickened, and an overwhelming sensation of sadness washed over the team. It was a poignant reminder of the lives that had once thrived within these walls, only to be replaced by an unsettling void. The stories of the Whitmore mansion spread beyond the town, drawing curiosity seekers and thrill seekers alike. Some came with an air of skepticism, while others sought closure for their own unresolved pasts. One such visitor was a historian, drawn by the allure of the mansion's tragic tale. She had spent years researching the Whitmore family, and the pull of the estate was irresistible. As she wandered through the dusty rooms, she felt a connection, a sense that the echoes of the past were not merely ghosts, but rather a reflection of the human experience. The historian discovered a hidden study behind a panel in a library, filled with dusty scrolls and personal letters of Robert and Eleanor. As she delicately thumbed through the pages, she uncovered a series of letters exchanged between the couple during Robert's frequent absences. The words revealed deep-seated frustrations, unfulfilled dreams, and a longing for a connection that had begun to erode under the weight of wealth and expectations. Twisted within the fabric of the mansion was the realization that the very foundation of their lives had been built on instability. One letter struck her with particular force, written by Eleanor during a particularly lonely evening. In it, she expressed her sorrow over their growing estrangement and her fears for their children's futures. "I feel as though this house is suffocating me," she wrote, "and the laughter that once filled it is now replaced by echoes of silence. I fear what this may lead to for us all." The historian stepped back, shaken by the weight of Eleanor's words, as if she had tapped into the very essence of the family's tragedy. The findings were not just stories of the past, they were cries for help, hints of a curse that might have befallen the Whitmore family. In the years following their downfall, the mansion had changed hands multiple times, each new owner quickly succumbing to its eerie grip. Financial ruin, personal tragedy, and unexplained accidents seemed to plague anyone who dared to take residence there. The mansion's reputation grew, and what was once a symbol of prosperity morphed into a beacon of misfortune. As night descended once more, the atmosphere thickened with an electric energy. A group of thrill-seekers, emboldened by stories of ghostly encounters, dared each other to spend the night within the mansion's confines. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they settled into the grand foyer, laughing nervously as they recounted infamous tales of the Whitmore family. But as the clock struck midnight, their laughter faded, replaced by an uneasy silence that pressed down upon them. Suddenly, a door creaked open down the hall, and their bravado shattered like glass. Heartbeats quickened, and they exchanged wide-eyed glances, courage evaporating into thin air.
The faint sound of a piano, once joyful, now emerged as a haunting melody, reverberating through the halls. They followed the sound, drawn to its source, a mix of fear and fascination propelling them forward. What they discovered was a room bathed in moonlight, where the grand piano sat untouched, yet seemingly alive. The keys moved gently, as if played by an unseen hand, and an inexplicable chill filled the air. The group stood frozen in awe, caught between the beauty of the moment and the terror of what it might mean. The melody, sweet yet sorrowful, echoed the pain of a family torn apart, a reminder that the mansion was more than just a structure. It was a vessel of lost dreams and unspoken words. In that haunting room, they felt the weight of the Whitmore legacy, an unbreakable bond of love, ambition, and tragedy. The night unfolded in a tapestry of shadows and whispers, leaving them with more questions than answers. As dawn broke, casting light on the mansion's dilapidated beauty, they exited, forever changed by their encounter with the past.
They would carry the stories of the Whitmore family, woven into the fabric of their own lives, a testament to the mysteries that lingered within the walls of the mansion. The Whitmore mansion stood silent, its once vibrant halls now cloaked in an air of desolation and decay. The echoes of laughter that had filled the grand ballroom were replaced by a haunting stillness, as if the very walls were mourning the lost grandeur of the family that had once inhabited it. This was a house that had witnessed the highs and lows of an entire lineage, but now it seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a story long buried to be told once more. As time passed, the mansion began to deteriorate, but its spirit remained, shrouded in tales of misfortune and whispers of the supernatural. Local townsfolk spoke in hushed tones about strange happenings within the mansion's walls, their stories fueled by a mixture of fear and fascination. They claimed to have seen flickering lights in the windows at night, even when the mansion was abandoned. Shadows moved across the cracked walls, and the wind would carry soft whispers that seemed to call out to anyone who dared to listen. It was as though the very essence of the Whitmore family lingered, trapped in a realm between the living and the dead. Investigations into the mansion's haunting began when a group of paranormal enthusiasts decided to explore the decaying structure, hoping to capture the essence of the spirits said to roam its halls. Equipped with cameras, EVP recorders, and a thirst for the unknown, they entered the mansion with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The air was thick with dust, and the smell of mildew hung heavily in the corners. As they stepped inside, their flashlights illuminated the remnants of opulent furnishings, now draped in tattered sheets, creating an eerie atmosphere that sent shivers down their spines. The group set up their equipment in the grand ballroom, the very space where the Whitmore family had once celebrated their triumphs and concealed their pain. As the night deepened, they began their investigation, calling out to any spirits that might be lingering. "Is anyone here with us?" one investigator asked, her voice trembling slightly. For a moment, silence enveloped the room, and the only sound was the faint rustling of the wind through the broken windows. Then, as if in response to their call, a chilling draft swept through the ballroom, causing the sheets to flutter and the candles to flicker ominously. The group exchanged nervous glances, hearts racing as they sensed a presence. Suddenly, the EVP recorder crackled to life, capturing a faint whisper that sent chills down their spines. "Help me," it pleaded, a voice filled with sorrow and longing. The investigators exchanged excited glances, convinced they had made contact with the spirit of a Whitmore. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. The group ventured deeper into the mansion, exploring the darkened hallways and abandoned rooms. Each creak of the floorboards felt like a heartbeat, echoing their fear and anticipation. They stumbled upon the library, where dust-coated books lined the shelves, their spines cracked and faded.
One investigator noticed a volume that seemed somewhat out of place, its cover ornate and glimmering in the dim light. As he pulled it from the shelf, a gust of wind swept through the room, scattering papers and causing the candles to flicker wildly. Inside the book were handwritten notes that chronicled the family's history, filled with both mundane details and chilling confessions. The deeper they read, the more they uncovered the turmoil that had plagued the Whitmores. Secrets of betrayal, jealousy, and ambition spilled from the pages, painting a picture of a family torn apart by greed and fear. It became clear that the mansion was not just a backdrop for their lives, it was a silent witness to their darkest moments. The investigators decided to hold a séance, hoping to connect with the spirits more directly. They gathered in a circle, holding hands, as the air around them became thick with anticipation. Candles flickered, casting long shadows on the walls as they called on the Whitmore spirits to join them. "We seek to understand your pain," one of them said, their voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted. The temperature dropped significantly, a chill creeping into their bones. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, sending everyone's hearts racing. They jumped to their feet, adrenaline surging as they rushed toward the sound. What they found left them breathless. An old chandelier, once a symbol of elegance, had fallen to the ground, shattering into countless pieces.
The investigators stood in shock, realizing that the spirits were communicating in the only way they knew how, through chaos and destruction. As they examined the debris, a sense of unease settled over them. They could feel the heavy weight of the mansion's history pressing down on their shoulders. It was as if the very spirit of the Whitmore family was warning them to leave, to escape the tragic fate that had befallen them. They gathered their equipment, hearts pounding as they retreated toward the exit, leaving behind the shattered remnants of a past that would not be forgotten. Yet, even as they left, the haunting presence remained, lingering in the shadows, waiting for the next curious soul to wander through its door. The mansion, with its crumbling walls and empty corridors, stood as a testament to the stories it held, stories of ambition turned to ruin, of lives lived in the balance between success and despair. Each crack in the plaster whispered secrets of a family that had once thrived but ultimately succumbed to the weight of their own ambitions. The Whitmore mansion, now a relic of its former self, beckoned to those drawn to its mysteries, inviting them to explore the depths of its sorrow and shadows. It was a place where time had frozen and echoes of the past refused to fade. As the investigators drove away, they glanced back one last time. The silhouette of the mansion silhouetted against the moonlit sky, a haunting reminder of the lives intertwined within its walls, and a promise that the story was far from over. And so, as the night continued, the mansion stood still, awaiting the next chapter of its long and tragic tale to unfold. Perhaps, in time, the whispers would grow louder, drawing more souls into its embrace, forever entwined with the legacy of the Whitmores. "Is anyone here with us tonight?" she called out, her words hanging thick in the stagnant air of the ballroom. The team exchanged uncertain glances, the flickering light from their equipment casting unsettling shadows against the once grand walls. They had all heard the stories, the tales of the Whitmore family and their tragic fate, but standing in the heart of the mansion, the weight of history pressed heavily upon them. Outside, the storm raged on, lightning illuminating the cracked windows, which had long lost their clarity. With each clap of thunder, the mansion seemed to breathe, shifting in the darkness like a living entity. The medium, her brow furrowed in concentration, closed her eyes and reached out, her fingers trembling slightly as she guided the energy in the room. "I can feel you," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "You are not alone." Suddenly, a chill swept through the ballroom, and the temperature dropped sharply. One of the investigators, a young man named Jake, shivered involuntarily. He rubbed his arms, trying to ward off the encroaching cold, but it was as if a ghostly hand had brushed against him, sending an icy shiver down his spine. "Did you feel that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The others nodded, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. The medium continued to speak, her voice now stronger, more commanding. "Show us a sign. Let us know you are here." As if in response, a distant sound echoed through the room, a soft, mournful melody that floated on the air like a forgotten memory. The group fell silent, straining to listen. The sound seemed to come from the far end of the ballroom, where a grand piano stood shrouded in dust and shadows. The notes were delicate, yet haunting, weaving a tapestry of emotions that only deepened the mystery of the Whitmore family. "Is that the piano?" whispered Sarah, another team member, her wide eyes reflecting both wonder and fear. "Yes, it's the piano," the medium confirmed, her eyes still closed. "They want us to know they are here." With bated breath, the investigators moved cautiously toward the piano. The sound continued, a wistful tune that spoke of joy and sorrow intertwined. When they reached the instrument, they found it untouched, its keys silent yet resonant with the echoes of the past. Jake reached out and pressed down on one of the keys, breaking the spell. The sharp sound rang out, cutting through the air like a knife. Instantly, the melody stopped, replaced by a heavy, eerie silence. "Did you ruin it?" one of the others teased, trying to break the tension. But there was no laughter, only a thick, unsettling quiet that enveloped them. The atmosphere felt charged, as if something was waiting to be unleashed. "Let's try again," the medium urged. "Sometimes they need an invitation." The group nodded hesitantly, and they gathered close, creating a semicircle around her. Once more, she implored, her voice steady, "Is anyone here with us?" This time, the response was immediate. A loud thump resonated from the hallway beyond the ballroom, the sound reverberating through the floorboards and sending a jolt through the group. They turned as one, hearts racing. "What was that?" Sarah's voice trembled, a mixture of curiosity and fear. "I think we should check it out," Jake suggested, trying to sound braver than he felt. The team slowly approached the doorway, the air thick with anticipation. As they stepped into the dimly lit corridor, they could feel the oppressive weight of the mansion surrounding them. The wooden floors creaked beneath their feet, echoing the footsteps of previous inhabitants, and their flashlights danced across the walls, illuminating faded portraits of the Whitmore family. The painted faces appeared almost alive, their eyes following the team's movements, each gaze steeped in untold stories. They moved cautiously down the hallway, the sound of their breathing mingling with the whispers of the past. At the end of the corridor, they found a door slightly ajar. The thumping sound had ceased, replaced by an almost palpable stillness. "Should we go in?" Jake asked, glancing back at the medium. She nodded, urging them forward. "We have to confront what's here. They need us to listen." With a deep breath, they pushed the door open, revealing a small study. The room was filled with dust and shadows, and the air felt heavier, saturated with unspoken words. A large desk sat in the center, papers strewn across its surface. As they stepped closer, they noticed that some of the documents were yellowed and brittle, revealing a glimpse into the lives of the Whitmores. There were letters, bills, and a journal, its leather cover cracked with age. The medium reached for the journal, her fingers trembling as she opened it. "Robert Whitmore's journal," she whispered, her eyes scanning the pages. "He wrote about his family's struggles, financial issues, family tensions. It's all here." She paused, her expression shifting as she read a particular entry aloud. "I fear our legacy is crumbling like the walls of this mansion. We fight against shadows of our past, but they grow stronger with each passing day."
The weight of the words hung in the air, a chilling reminder of the family's tragic fate. The investigators exchanged looks, realizing that the mansion was not just a haunting, it was a testament to a life once lived, filled with dreams, heartbreak, and unresolved mysteries. As they delved deeper, the atmosphere shifted again.
A cold draft swept through the study, and the flickering lights dimmed further. "It feels like they are trying to communicate," Sarah said, feeling an inexplicable urge to uncover more. Just then, the piano began to play again, echoing through the halls, weaving the threads of the past into the present. With each note, the investigators felt the stories of the Whitmores come alive around them. They were no longer just observers. They were part of the narrative, entangled in the mansion's history. And in that moment, as the haunting melody filled the air, they understood that the Whitmore mansion, with all its mysteries and shadows, was a place alive with emotion, yearning for resolution. As the echoes of the past intertwined with their reality, the group was acutely aware that they were on the precipice of something profound. What lay ahead remained unknown, but the mansion held its secrets close, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. As the pale glow of dawn began to creep through the cracked windows of the Whitmore mansion, the paranormal investigators gathered their thoughts, still reeling from a night filled with strange occurrences. The previous hours had been marked by an unsettling mix of silence and echoes, punctuated by the sharp sounds of footsteps that were not their own. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the very air around them crackled with the remnants of whispered secrets. One investigator, Emily, stood in the grand ballroom, her breath forming small clouds in the chilly morning air. She had always been a skeptic, but the events of the night had shaken her resolve. "Did you hear that too?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The others nodded, recounting the whispers and the inexplicable cold spots they had felt. As they shared their experiences, a sense of camaraderie formed among them, bound by the shared thrill of their encounter with the unknown. The mansion, though desolate, was alive with stories of its past. Each room they had explored revealed fragments of the Whitmore family's history, old photographs, fading letters, and ornate furniture, now covered in layers of dust that told of years without care. With each discovery, the investigators felt a deeper connection to the mansion, a place that had once been filled with life and laughter. They had come to document the supernatural, but instead, they found themselves entangled in the rich tapestry of the Whitmore legacy. As the light brightened, the group moved through the dimly lit corridors one last time. The air was heavy with the scent of damp wood and mildew, a stark reminder of the mansion's decay. They paused in front of a large portrait of Elizabeth Whitmore, the matriarch of the family. Her gaze seemed to follow them as they stood, entranced. "What do you think she would say if she knew we were here?" Mark, the team leader, mused aloud. The others exchanged glances, sensing the weight of history that hung in the air. The peculiarities of the mansion didn't stop with the whispers and shadows. A local historian had mentioned an old family legend, a tale of a hidden treasure said to have been buried within the mansion's walls. As they shared stories of the mansion's past, this legend began to take root in their imaginations. Could it be that the presence they felt was tied to something far greater than just a lingering spirit? What if the Whitmore family had left more than mere memories behind? With renewed purpose, the investigators decided to search for clues to this rumored treasure. They split up, each taking a different part of the mansion, retracing their steps through rooms that remained frozen in time. Emily found herself drawn to the library, where the scent of old books mixed with the musty air. She ran her fingers across the spines of volumes long untouched, hoping to find something, anything, that could lead them to the treasure. In a darkened corner of the library, she noticed a small ornate box partially hidden behind a stack of books.
Her heart raced as she pulled it free, dusting off the layers that had accumulated over the years. The box was intricately designed, adorned with symbols she didn't recognize. As she carefully opened it, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Inside, she found a collection of old jewelry, rings, brooches, and necklaces, each piece glimmering in the faint light. It seemed the legend of the hidden treasure had some merit after all. Excitedly, Emily called the others over, and together they examined the treasure. Each piece was a testament to the wealth and status the Whitmore family had once enjoyed. But as they marveled at the find, a chill swept through the room, making them shiver despite the warmth of the morning sun. "Do you feel that?" whispered Sarah, her voice trembling. But temperature seemed to drop, and the atmosphere shifted, becoming thick with unspoken tension.
Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, drawing their attention toward the door. They exchanged nervous glances, half expecting to see a phantom figure emerge. Instead, it was a local historian named Frank, who had come to share his insights about the mansion. He had heard rumors of their investigation and wanted to offer his knowledge about the Whitmore family. As they welcomed him in, Emily decided to show him the jewelry she had found. Frank's eyes widened in disbelief. "This is incredible," he exclaimed. "These pieces belong to Elizabeth herself. They were thought to be lost forever." The group listened intently as Frank shared stories of Elizabeth's life, her ambitions, and the love she had for her family. But there was also sorrow interwoven in her tale, a tragic end that had left her spirit restless. As Frank spoke, the mansion seemed to respond. The air crackled with energy, and the investigators felt the weight of Elizabeth's presence pressing down on them. "Many believe her spirit still roams these halls, searching for something she lost," Frank revealed, glancing around the room. "Perhaps it is this very treasure. She may have hidden it away, hoping to protect it for the future." The realization sent a shiver down their spines. Were they merely uncovering the remnants of a lifelong past, or were they also awakening something that had been lying dormant? As they continued their discussion, the atmosphere became increasingly charged, the very walls of the mansion seeming to vibrate with the energy of its history. The investigators knew they had stumbled onto something significant, both a piece of history and a potential connection to the spirit of Elizabeth Whitmore. While the mansion had fallen into disrepair, it was clear that its legacy was far from forgotten. The whispers in the halls might just be the echoes of a family yearning to be remembered. As they prepared to leave, the sense of mystery lingered in the air. The Whitmore mansion, though abandoned, had embraced them in a way that few places ever could. They had come seeking the supernatural, but what they found was a story threaded with loss, legacy, and hope. And as they walked away, the mansion stood tall against the morning light, a guardian of secrets still waiting to be uncovered. With the weight of their discoveries resting heavy on their hearts, they made a pact to return. The mansion was not just a relic of the past, but a living entity, holding within its walls tales yearning to be told. As they stepped into the fading shadows of the Whitmore mansion, the group felt an undeniable connection to its legacy, knowing that their journey was far from over. The mystery of the Whitmore mansion would continue, and they were determined to unveil every layer of its haunting history, one echoing whisper at a time.